Welcome. My name is Grandma Storm. I write stories for young adults. Today I am reading chapters 11 through 15 in my book, 146 BC. Chapter 11. They set sail the next morning. It was another merchant ship, but this one was more commodious, designed to carry passengers and cargo. Rin no longer slept on the open deck, but was settled into a tiny cabin with a bench for a bed. She missed the open sky, but did not miss the cold nights. Nkosi visited her with provisions and more lessons in Punic. Every night, the ship made port. Barak, accompanied by Nkosi, always went ashore. Most of the time, they left Ren on the ship. On occasion, Barak required her to sing for banquets like the one in Malacca. Each time, she grew more accustomed to singing before people. Offers to buy her were made every time. Barak declined them all. One night, when Nkosi and Barak were gone, a man, one of the crew, shoved open the door to her cabin. He smiled, chattering away in a language Rin did not understand. He was slightly built, smelled like dead fish, and jerked his head nervously. He approached her, but an order was shouted on deck, and he hurried away. She mentioned it the next morning to Nkosi. He grimaced. That is not good, Rin. I will tell Lord Barak. Be on your guard. Sing out if a stranger enters the cabin. Nkosi is not far away. You are now one of Lord Barak's prized possessions. He would not want you damaged. This conversation confused and worried Rin. You and Lord Barak leave me here. I will talk with him. For the next several ports, Rin accompanied the men on shore. The noise and crush of so many people overwhelmed the girl. People were always pointing at her. More than one woman pulled her brown braids. Rin was surprised, however, to understand more of the words filling the air of the towns. The night they left her on the ship was a relief to her senses. She lay back on the bench, pillowed her head with her shawl, and enjoyed the quiet of her own thoughts. Of course, she thought of home. Tears came. She wiped them away and for comfort took out her only link to home, the stone knife. Asmund, her brother, had made it for her. It was just a tool, yet it felt like an extension of her hand. At home, she used it to scrape hides, to cut thread, or to help more with the cooking. Asmund knew she liked pretty things and had carved a little bird on the handle. His smile came before her mind's eye. How she missed him. The ship was quiet. The crew must have all gone on shore. Rin wondered when Nkosi and Barak would return, when the door to her cabin creaked open. It was the same sailor as before. Again he smiled, but was visibly nervous. He spoke a few incomprehensible words, but Rin did not like the look on his face. She remembered Nkosi had told her to call for him. Nkosi, Nkosi! He hesitated, stopped, and listened. Then he laughed. His face twisted in a way Rin had never seen before. He lunged, knocking her flat to the bench. Nkosi! When she stabbed the stone knife into the man's side, he sucked in his breath and his eyes bulged. She pulled the knife out and stabbed again. His blood flowing freely, he rolled off her, staggered out of the cabin, and dropped to his knees. Nkosi! Nkosi! Barak was there first. When he saw the sailor collapsed in his own blood, the look of horror on Rin's face, and the knife in her hand, he knew what had happened. Nkosi, bellowed Barak. Get this garbage out of here. Tell the captain I hold him responsible for any damage to my goods. Barak approached Rin, but she hung back, the knife still in her hand, the man's blood saturating her gown. Ah, my little bird, spoke Barak softly, has talons, I see. Chapter 12. My lord Barak, growled the captain of the ship, 1,000 pardons. This useless animal will be thrown off my ship to rot out of sight. I paid good silver, replied Barak, for the clothing on my slave, which your idiot ruined. Yes, my lord, stuttered the man. I know of a good shop here in this port. I know the owner personally. He sells only the best. We can make all things right in the morning. I will delay leaving port until you are satisfied. In the meantime, may I offer you and your slaves the use of my cabin for the duration of the voyage? We should reach Cartagena in a few days. After that, we sail for Carthage. Barak grunted. The captain thought it best to tend to other duties and hurried away. Barak had enough of this ship. He would look for a different passage. His little bird was frightened by the unpleasant incident. Rin stood beside Nkosi on the open deck. Her head hung low, her eyes hidden. Barak hoped her ability to sing would not be ruined by this rough handling. It was well demonstrated she was a valuable property. He would give her a few days of gentle treatment, and then he would try her voice again. And the knife? He thought maybe he should take it from her for his own safety, but then she had never drawn it on Nkosi or himself. Even in the early days after the mutiny, when her eyes were round with fear, she never used it. He had not even known she had it. He would speak to her, acknowledge she had a knife, ask to see it, and then allow her to keep it. As he saw it, a woman had a right to defend herself. His thoughts turned to his beloved mother and sister. He would want them to protect themselves with a knife in such distress. At first light, he would order Nkosi to take Rin to the baths. He would see to her new gown himself. My lord, said the captain as he returned to Barak, my cabin is cleared of the few things I require for navigation and accounting of cargo. I have ordered my steward to supply you with choice wine. It is the best I can do to amend for the damage to your property. Barak ignored the captain, nodded to Nkosi, and took Rin by the arm. In the captain's quarters, he pointed to a corner where she collapsed in a heap. Her shoulders heaved, but she cried silently. He would leave her to her tears, if she was quiet about it. Nkosi pantomimed a knife and lifted his eyebrows. Barak waved him off. Go to sleep, Nkosi. I will take first watch. Chapter 13. As the dried blood was scrubbed off her skin by the attendants at the baths, Rin shuddered with revulsion at the thought of the man that smelled like dead fish. The warm water, the scented oils, applied to her skin with gentle touch, calmed her heart and cleared her mind, just as she remembered Mata said they would. Before she left the ship to go to the baths, Barak asked for the knife. She wanted to say no, but realized it was impossible to resist. My brother made it, was all she offered. She surrendered the bloody thing to his hand and followed Nkosi down the plank. Rin's hair was being braided when Nkosi presented the new gown. Rin thought the gown Mata selected was beautiful, but this took her breath away. The sage green fabric was as soft as Un's cheek and slipped through her hand like water. Silver thread accented the border. When the attendant pinned the bird to her shoulder, she handed Rin a brass mirror. Rin was afraid to see a girl looking at her. What kind of magic was this? The frightened face moved and the eyes grew bigger. Nkosi laughed. Ah, Rin, Nkosi understands. When a boy, I too had never seen a mirror. The first thing I saw my face in one, I was scared to death, but then I am ugly. Give me the mirror. He took it and showed her his reflection. Then he sat by her and showed both their faces together. Magic? Rin stuttered. It may be magic, answered Nkosi. That I do not know. But I do know you need not to be frightened by it. Again. Nkosi handed it to her. She gathered her courage and looked at the shiny surface. There sat a young woman with an anxious face, her hair freshly braided, wearing a green gown with a silver bird pinned at the shoulder. Rin turned her head this way and that, looking in the mirror. Nkosi laughed. For the first time on her adventures, she laughed too. Chapter 14. While Rin marveled at the gown Nkosi presented to her at the bath, a quinquereme, a grand warship of Carthaginian design, arrived in the harbor. Barak went to inquire of the captain what their next port would be. Carthage, answered the captain. When do you sail? Tomorrow. My orders are to make all haste to the military harbor. I desire to arrange passage for myself and 2 slaves. I am restricted to military affairs only. I understand, replied Barak. I have been on a mission for Hasdrubal, the Botriarch, to the northern seas. Our journey experienced great difficulties. I am all that remain of the officers. At the mention of Hasdrubal, the captain newly essayed the man who stood before him. Please forgive me, said the captain. I failed to properly introduce myself. I am Milkar, captain of the ship. Whom do I have the pleasure of meeting? Barak, son of Lord Senatus. Lord Barak, we sail tomorrow. What accommodations do you require? Private cabin with 3 berths and no questions asked. Of course. At dawn the next morning, Barak, with Nkosi and Rin in tow, made his way to the wharf. At first sight of the ship, Rin stopped in her tracks and stared. The huge vessel rose high above the water. Tiers of long oars dipped into the sea, undulating with a gentle swell. While a noisy troop of men loaded gear, officers shouted orders at the crew. Square sails tethered by ropes slapped tall masts as sailors climbed the rigging. Nkosi looked back to see the girl, dumbstruck. Rin, called Nkosi, are you going to run away now? What is that? A ship, laughed Nkosi. Rin hurried to the African side, her gown flowing about her slender form. Silver flashed at her waist. It was a silver sheath for her stone knife. When Barak visited the cloth merchant recommended by the ship captain, he walked past the shop of a silversmith. Concluding his errand, he dispatched Nkosi with the gown to the baths. Entering the silversmith's shop, Barak looked at the examples on display and judged them of good quality. He presented Rin's bloody knife to the craftsman. Can you make a proper sheath for this? Yes. I require the work to be done this day. Of course, sir, replied the smith, but you see, I have other clients in need of their bowls and rings and necklaces. What is your price for expedited work? It was lower than Barak expected. Then he remembered the silver mines were near and the port but a small one. Prices were reflective of the provincial region. Agreed, said Barak as he counted coin into the smith's hand. I will send my man for it before you close. How will I know him, sir? He is a Numidian called Nakosi. Do I wash away the blood? Yes. The baths and the new gown did much to heal Rin's heart. When she smiled at the brass mirror, the blood-red horrors of the night faded to gray. We must hurry, said Nakosi to Rin as he paid the attendants. Lord Barak is looking for a new ship. We are to meet him at an inn by the wharf. The balance of the day was spent with food and wine at an inn overlooking a garden. Rin remembered the teachings of Mata. She ate slowly and reached for her wine gracefully. Still, she wondered what became of her knife. Would she ever see it again? It was her only tie to home, her only remembrance of her brother, her only defense. As the evening darkened, Barak turned to her and said, I believe it is a brother's place to protect his sister. I wish to honor your brother for the gift he gave to you. Take back your knife. Wear it openly. Allow the silver sheath to flash at your side. It will be a warning to foolish men to leave my little songbird alone. Rin trembled as Barak placed it in her hand. She noted a silver ring to hook the sheath to her belt. As tears welled in her eyes, Rin saw an engraving of a bird on the casing. It matched the one carved by Asmund. Thank you, murmured Rin as she looked into Barak's brown eyes. But that was 2 days ago. Long hours after the ship pulled out of the harbor, the wind shifted and the sky grew black. Rin was alone when Nakosi stuck his head in the cabin. Rin, Lord Barak says the ship is entering a storm. You are not to be frightened. The captain is a good seaman. The ship is well built. With that, he left Rin to her imagination. Soon the ship was groaning as it climbed each successive wave, then crashed before it slid into a valley of black brine. Wind screamed through the rigging. When Nakosi returned, the door to the cabin blew out of his hands. Rin saw dark clouds race as they were whipped by the wind. She huddled on the bench, her shawl wrapped around her. Nakosi plopped to the floor, not looking at all well. Oh, Freya, whispered Rin, protect us from the storm. Chapter 15. No storm lasts forever. With time, the wind stopped shrieking and the ship pitched less. Nakosi looked a bit more cheerful. Ah, Rin, the gods have spared us yet again. I will go and see about our master. Maybe I will find where the ship's steward hides the bread. Rising on unsteady legs, Nakosi negotiated the door to the cabin and was gone. Rin took more interest in her surroundings. The cabin was spare, but had benches for sleeping. Rin noted curious carvings on the ship's planks. Nakosi returned with food and drink. The storm dies, observed Nakosi as he sat cross-legged on the floor. But we need not. Here, Rin, look what Nakosi found. Bread, wine, cheese. That will encourage the body to live another day. Nakosi, what are these marks? He looked where Rin pointed. Carved into the wood was a series of figures. They do not look like anything, pondered Rin. Not a drawing, yet some of the marks are repeated. Look here, and here. Ah, Rin, that is writing. What is writing? Nakosi cannot read, but Lord Barak can understand the markings. They are called letters. What do letters do? They make words. One man can write them, and another man can understand them. That thought astounded Rin. She put her ear to the markings. I don't hear anything. Ah, Rin, laughed Nkosi. I will tell the joke to Lord Barak. Why is that a joke? Because the ear does not hear it, but the eye sees it. Then the mouth makes a sound. Better than that, the thought of the other man appears in the mind. What kind of magic is that? I will ask Lord Barak to explain. The next day, Barak gave a rudimentary explanation of the alphabet to his assembled class of Nkosi and Rin. Fond memories of his Greek tutor returned, and he found himself drifting into lessons on Greek adaptations to Phoenician letters. At that point, an expansive yawn from Nkosi broke his thought. Barak smiled at his pupils. Enough. To learn to read takes years of work. Let me simply explain the marks Rin noticed. These are assembly instructions to the shipwrights. Each piece of timber is marked with letters so the carpenter can assemble the ships with great speed. That is a secret few know. Rin pointed at some letters. Does this mean port side? Barak raised his eyebrows in surprise at the cleverness of the girl. Yes, it does. Thank you for listening. To hear more of the story, please come back soon, or you may purchase your own copy on Amazon. Just follow the link below. Until next time.